Hey, I'm Matt Staney, and this is Hiring on All Cylinders, real conversations with people shaping the future of talent. Powered by the Hire community, we dive into the bold ideas and fresh perspectives to help you build exceptional teams and scale with purpose. All right, today I am joined by someone I've just recently had the pleasure of connecting with in Austin, James Lafferty. He's the VP of Global Talent Acquisition and Global Mobility at Epicor Software. James, welcome to the podcast. James, for our audience, could you just give a quick introduction of yourself and what you do?
Certainly. So thanks for having me on. So I'm James Lafferty. As you mentioned, I'm currently VP of Talent Acquisition and Global Mobility at Epicor. They're a 5,000 person software company headquartered in Austin, Texas, where I am, but I'm originally from the UK. I spent many years, 15 years or so, on the agency side doing technical staffing, running technical staffing companies. That's how I ended up moving to the US in 2015. And so now I'm responsible for probably about 1,200 hires a year, a software company, and that's across 32 different countries. Revenues probably just over north of $1 billion, 1.2 billion.
Looking at your career, you're a builder, right? Like you went from 0 to 50 recruiters at Austin Frazier. Now, a global scale at Epicor, right? What stayed consistent across these builds, and then what's totally different?
Well, what's totally different is I've now got a follow the sun model, right? So yeah, we've got people in 32 countries. And so we've got to have recruiters who can support each of the time zones and the hiring managers and the different needs there. So that's different. What remains the same is, as a builder, I like to create a standardized system, right? So it's standardized globally, but then there might be some like regional nuances to have that local flexibility. And so I think that when I joined, it was understanding, like, so, okay, what is everyone doing? Like, how are we doing it? And then looking at, well, what can be standardized, across different countries and different regions? Because as a leader, if you're having to learn different systems for 32 countries, it would be impossible to make major improvements. Whereas if you've got a standardized system, then it's much easier to then just go, right, okay, well, here's the different levers that we can use and pull and make bigger changes, which will have an impact on the business.
Interesting. Yeah, it sounds like there's some core fundamentals of recruiting.
Yeah.
And while maybe, before you got there and started building this, there were teams doing things maybe different ways, and some kind of using best practices, some not. And it's really more about like creating consistency for better measurement across the regions. And then did you go to some of these regions when you first started to really understand the culture and like what the nuances were?
Yeah, so I get the opportunity to travel around the world. Yeah, I've been to Kuala Lumpur and India and Mexico this year already. And I think for me is, if you want to make improvements, and we're talking, what does the hiring manager want? They want the best people as quickly as possible with as least friction as possible. And so, if you've got all your recruiters doing things slightly differently, then the hiring manager then doesn't get the same experience depending on the recruiter's ability, the country, the type of positions they're trying to fill. And so I was like, well, what are the things we can standardize and get the leadership team behind that? And then, speed is basically a byproduct of clarity and direction. And so getting everyone, this is the standard, this is this is like the base expectation, and here's the like what we're aspiring to, and getting everyone to maybe change the way they work, but all then on the same page with, I know what is expected of me, rather than just filling these jobs.
I really like the way you're framing this. You almost sound more like a product leader than a recruiting leader, because you're using even some of the similar language, right? Like, we have to focus on the quality of the product, and for recruiting, that product is our, is our recruiter skill sets, it's our process, and it's being able to measure it and improve it over time. But if everybody's doing something different, everywhere else, and there's no standardized product, that your end customer, the hiring manager, especially if they're a global leader, is going to feel the inconsistency of your product.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's great. Um, let's talk a little bit about designing for a modern TA org, right? And so you're running a global TA organization across multiple time zones and cultures, right? And so with, you said, what, 1,200 hires a year,
That's right.
right? How do you structure for both speed and quality?
So we make sure that the recruiters have the tools in order to be successful, and we give them the training to how to get the most out of these tools, and input it into or implement it in their everyday lives, and move their mindset from order takers to their partners, business partners, right? So because and making sure that they understand that the hiring manager's success in their role and their career rests upon the talent within their teams, right? So you need to partner. It's not just like, hey, I'm a recruiter, my job is to serve you and find you people, but that we want the equal partnership where the hiring manager is as invested, if not more invested than the recruiter, because that's their career and that's their job.
Yeah, and they're the ones making the decision, right? And so the value, I think, that recruiters probably need to be able to bring is more than just process pushing. Because if we're talking about modern TORs and technology, like, let's be honest, AI is coming in and it can do a lot.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't a hiring manager just go buy an AI recruiting solution and have it take its order and take their order and push process? Like, if we're not bringing something to the table of true advisory and expertise in our craft and identifying talent so that these hiring managers can be the subject matter experts in product or sales and marketing or engineering, right?
Yeah.
And recruiters be the experts on the product of great hiring.
Yeah.
That's a competitive differentiator versus just I'm following a process here.
Yeah. And I said, it's not just changing the recruiter's mindset, but it was changing the business mindset. So everyone who works for the company is, has the ability to find and attract talent. So everyone, we're looking at how we measure referrals, or hiring managers posting on LinkedIn, being like, going as kind of, I want to say, above and beyond, because that's a minimum expectation is you're posting. If you want these people, we say good people know good people, right? So their networks, if they're a product leader, right? So their network of all the people they've worked with in the past have all been in product. So if you're trying to hire someone, then where better to advertise it and publicize that you're hiring is like your LinkedIn, your social media profiles.
Love it. And so I think that's helpful. And like when you're thinking through designing as far as the relationship with the hiring manager, like what's your approach as you think more holistically around talent, whether that be global mobility or contingent workforce, and TA under sort of one talent strategy? Talk to me about that.
Talentful provides flexible recruiting solutions to the world's most ambitious companies. Are you thinking about ways to add flexibility to your talent function? With recent market volatility and hiring set to return to growth mode in the near future, there's never been a better time to choose the right partner to help you scale. Talentful's embedded sourcing, recruiting, coordination, and talent advisory services have been trusted by the world's leading brands. Companies such as Atlassian, Microsoft, Expedia, Pinterest, Waymo, and more. Whether you're hiring across engineering, go-to-market, or G&A, Talentful has got you covered. To find out how Talentful can help you, visit talentful.com.
When I started, I just had talent, I say just, there's a big deal, but I had talent acquisition. And then over the last 4 years, I've then got the contingent workforce and all of our global mobility efforts as well. And so now we've got one plan in place and four levers. And I call it like the 4 Bs. So it's build, buy, borrow or bots, right? So, and it's so when you're working with the hiring leaders, you go, okay, so build it. Okay, what talent do we have internally that we need to train and build them up? If we can't do that, or it's more immediate, then we need to go and buy it. External talent, get them in. Borrow is our contingent. It's like, I need this project delivered, but once that's done, then there's nothing else for them to do. So we borrow it. So we get a contingent on the contingent side. And then bots is like, well, do you need a person or can technology solve this?
Yeah. Is this like a repeatable thing? Is this like a,
And that's something more recent, right? But with the advance of like AI and the technology is capable of doing so much work that, like the manual repetitive tasks that maybe someone might have to have done a few years ago, but now it's much more like, okay, well, we can actually automate all of this work. And that's where we're seeing a real shift in the market.
Yeah, I think so too. Like consolidations in the role. It seems like, a lot of recruiting orgs, rather than just being divided geographically, it's more functionally.
Yeah.
And then, you're seeing sort of this need of the shifting of the kind of roles and org structure of TA as well, where, as AI comes in and does a really great job at scheduling coordination and things like that, right? You're seeing more coordinators move into like employee experience. Are you seeing that it's not so much that roles within a typical TA org are just disappearing, but that they're sort of evolving? Have you seen that in your org?
Everyone's job has changed.
Yeah,
no matter what,
that's true. Not just in recruiting.
Like so, especially in the corporate world, everyone's job has changed in the last few years, and not just talking if you think about like a few years ago, I was, in the office all the time, no ability to like video call. We had the ability, but you just didn't do it. I was on a plane all the time, but then now it's very easy to Zoom and speak to people, and it's like, so that's a shift. And then
technology changes behaviors.
Exactly. And now it's like that with AI, it's like, they're coming at you from all angles, and then you're figuring out which ones are actually the ones what's going to solve the biggest problems, and is that something we want to look at.
Yeah. And then what it sounds like too, like what needs to remain human.
So that's it. So it's where
like it's almost a choice at this point.
Yeah,
right.
And I think that so we look at where where the humans start and the robots end, or where the robots start and the humans end. It's like looking at what do we want to remain human and what do we want to automate. And if it's something that is prone to error and is repeatable, then you should probably get automation on that. Whereas if it's like high value work, speaking to hiring managers, speaking to candidates, pitching, all of that, like negotiation, that's human, right? Humans want to deal with humans, and so it's understanding where that, and it's a very gray line, but it's understanding where that line is for your company.
Yeah, it's interesting. And being a TA, do you think in the future that you would need to not only think about talent in the perspective of human beings, but also in AI agents and algorithms and workflows, and things like that? I'm starting to see even a trend in some organizations where HR now has IT under it, and they're thinking holistically about their overall workforce, both agents and humans, and how to meaningfully weave that together.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's about getting the most out of the technology without just putting technology everywhere. The way in which I explain it to my team is, if you buy a product and then you've got an issue with that product, you want to pick up the phone and someone to go, well, have you tried this? Have you tried that? And walk you through the process. And then you're like, oh, I'm unplugging this and I'm doing that, right? And you feel like I'm being supported here. They've got my back, and I feel like we're going to get there. Whereas if it was, you pick up the phone, it was like, press 1 and then turn it off, or have you done this? And you get like these repetitive like bots, right? You get frustrated because you're like, I'm doing all of this, but it's taking too long and I don't feel heard. And so like that's just a customer experience point of view, but I think about it in TA and going, well, we want people to feel this is changing a job is one of the most important and like stressful situations you could probably find yourself in. So we want a human to be able to empathize, to hear their needs and what's important to them, and be able to walk them through the transparently the positives, the negatives, and what that actually translates to you as a person, not just you're a candidate, this is what we offer.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say fear too, because I think there is a lot of fear around AI a little bit in our industry now, right? And so it's, I think I have a bit more of a positive perspective on that, right?
Yeah.
If I think about recruiting in the decades that I've been in this, it a lot of time it was the recruiting role that did feel very reactive and repetitive, almost like we felt like the robots.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, we were doing robot type work, right? It was, asking the same questions, doing the same sort of interview, scheduling, pushing the same buttons to move along in the ATS, and as AI kind of comes in and takes some of those tasks away, it's almost like we can now do some of the parts of recruiting that we loved the most, which was being that advisor. It was hearing that candidate's story and reflecting back to them why that makes them a great candidate, or having those difficult conversations with a hiring manager or even a candidate when they didn't get a job or they'd lost that candidate, right? The human side of things that AI will never replace, right? And so when I hear people say, oh yeah, AI is going to come in and completely automate recruiting, I'm just like, I laugh, because it's like, then you weren't doing recruiting.
They were saying like computers were going to take recruiting jobs when I started. So maybe it's a bit more advanced now, but maybe it's just taking the bits that don't add value. So now recruiters have to demonstrate their value.
Right. And you hear these CEOs like, we're going to be able to completely automate recruiting. I'm like, okay, tell me how that works out for you after a while, after you get a few hires, right?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And so, let's talk about the acquisition that you led. What were the biggest challenges in integrating a smaller company into Epicor? Because y'all recently had to go through that process, right?
Yeah. So we, similar to the model which I follow is, the build, the buy, the borrow. Yeah, it's like sometimes, companies that go, well, this is a tool which complements our software. Can we build something ourselves, or is it easier to acquire that software? And then when we acquire the software, obviously all the people that are there, right, come with it. And
sometimes it's an acqui-hire too. It's like they have a concentration of some talent that we want.
Oh, absolutely. And because, those people have made that product and sold that product and know that product better than anyone else. So so I think so when I was led the acquisition, it was a great experience for me, because it's something I've never done before, and I put my hand up and my boss is like, I've got your back, like, and help me with this. But from it's a 50-person business, and we're a 5,000 person business, and acquiring them, so that I can empathize with them and put myself in their shoes and go, well, you've got like the David and Goliath.
There'd be a lot of fear involved with that. Yeah.
And I've worked for smaller companies, and it's like, okay, if I need something, I know where my boss's office is. So I walk up, I knock on the door, and I ask for this, and then we go back and forth, and then I go, okay, that's the approvals that I need. Right. But when you're going to a bigger company, there's a lot more rigidness.
Yeah, so there's a change management element of that for the folks being acquired.
Yeah. And so first, I think they go through a range of emotions where they're like, what does this mean to me? Right. What does it, what does this, because you can be like, well, they're going to just take our product and then discard the people. Like, is a potential. However, that's not the way in which we look at it. We kind of absorb them and go, well, let's give you all the benefits and the marketing and the investment that we can offer as a big company.
Yeah, the scale of the impact.
Let's see you grow, and let's because the product that we acquire complements this other product that we made ourselves, and so we're going to be hand in hand and going to these customers together, and we'll generate more opportunities. We'll be able to sell to your customers, you'll be able to sell to our customers, but like, it's not seen as yours and ours. It's like, together we're going to be growing this opportunity.
Got it. So as a TA leader, and you're thinking about employee engagement, employer branding, and understanding and respecting the culture that existed in maybe that smaller team.
Yeah.
But then, helping them connect the dots between the mission they had before,
Yeah.
maybe the culture they had, to the mission, the maybe larger scale mission and culture that Epicor has.
Yeah.
Like, how did y'all do that? Like, what was the sort of the initial feeling for those folks, and what did you do from a talent leader perspective to help them make that connection into the new?
Well, I think we went through, our EVP and our culture and how we measure. We went through the tools, and it's really a detailed overview of not just on our website, this is what we do as a company, but this is who we are and what we stand for, our mission, our vision, our values, and them understand that then you're now a part of that. And so when it comes to, I'll just put it into recruiting, I'd say to we speak to these managers and they're like, oh, we've got these vacancies. I was like, well, how do you go about filling these? And I was like, well, the manager's like, well, I look on LinkedIn and
I do it myself.
And I was like, look, we've got a team of people, and we will help you, consult with you, find you the best people, and this is the expected time to fill. This is the process. And they're like, oh, that's amazing, because I was taking
it's like
so
thinking
much time.
They can like relax almost. Then they start seeing the benefits of being a part of a larger structure, and they're like, oh
Yeah.
like I'm being supported in ways that I wasn't before.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like, it's the support, and it's the this keeping what the magic that made them great, and that small company kind of fast pacedness, but also giving them the support to go, you don't need to worry about these things. We're going to remove all these blockers that are maybe holding you back from doing what you do best.
Love it. It's great. And so, you mentioned how hiring needs have evolved. Have you been enrolled? It's not just skills, right? It's the mindset, right? So what are you looking for now, that maybe you weren't looking for before, in a great recruiter or in candidates?
So I think for on the recruiting side, people I hire, I look for people who are curious, learning agility, and resilience or grit. Right. I think that's changed, because it's in the past it was like, can you do the job, a job of a recruiter? Can you do this?
Have you done this before?
Yeah. And then, but now it's very much about, I like the consider, because things move so quickly. Yeah. And, not always for the best. So then that's the grit and resilience. But, the learning agility and curiosity is what, is looking at processes, looking at the way in which things are done, and going, oh, how can it be better? Like, how can I make improvements? And that means, not just pointing the finger and going, this isn't very good, but going, well, based on my experience, here's like how we could improve this. Because I think for me, it's like, skills, they expire, right? Something you learned 10 years ago might not be applicable today. However, if you've got that learning agility, that means you're kind of always looking to improve what you're doing.
It's like that Kaizen mentality, continual change. Like, in some ways, humans can be a little bit averse to change, right? And in other ways, like, that's literally how we evolved, right? And so being able to adapt and things like that. And so that's interesting that you mentioned learning agility, because that does seem, in the age of AI, probably one of the most important skills, like, because things are changing so fast. You always need to be learning new things, new technologies, and curiosity. I almost feel like in the age of AI, you're only limited by your curiosity in that point, because now knowledge is a commodity, right?
Yeah, exactly. So if everyone has access to the same tools and information, then it's just about how you interpret it and what you learn from it and how you can articulate that, all of that. So it definitely makes it a more level playing field.
Love it. And so, you talked about hiring people who maybe, aren't just walking the treadmill. I think you've said that in the
Yeah,
past, right? Like they're rethinking the whole gym,
yeah.
right? And so what does that look like in practice?
Yeah, if my team are listening, I've always got weird or terrible analogies for everything. But yeah, so it's not just walking on the treadmill, it's rethinking the gym. And what I mean by that is, in the past you were, say the treadmill is the job that you're doing. Okay, it's going fairly, consistent speed. Someone leaves the company, they get off the treadmill, yeah, it stops, and then the next person jumps in that seat or the treadmill, and it keeps going at the same speed, right? Maybe a little bit faster, maybe a little bit slower. Whereas, it's like, can you do the job, that the last person did? And then I think that's just a different, like, not where we want to be going, but it's like someone who goes, well, I'm here, and do I want to run? What are my goals? How can we do this differently? And looking at different pieces of equipment, this is where the gym analogy comes in, but looking at what you're doing, why you're doing it, and kind of questioning, like, the treadmill itself and that job itself, and looking at ways to improve. So, like, continuous improvement in whatever job you're doing is a real critical thing.
Love it. And so, talk to me about your relationship with L&D, with learning and development. Have you started to rethink, how we look at this? Do you see talent acquisition like needing to lean more into learning and development, given how the rapid change of skills and the demand of them?
Yeah. So I think that you mentioned before, but it's recruiters and talent acquisition. We get people into the door, but then L&D like fulfills that I guess the promise, because many people don't want to just do a job and do that job forever. They want to learn, they want to grow, they want to be challenged. So learning and development gives them the tools to do the job. And I think there's some common metrics. We look at like internal mobility metrics. It's like, well, if we're finding the right people with that learning agility, can learning and development provide them what they need to succeed in their careers? And so the way in which I look at it is, as a talent acquisition, they plant the seeds, and then learning and development waters it and watches it grow. And as recruiters, we have a lot of fulfillment seeing, someone you placed and then see their career flourish. Seeing them like not just do the job that you hired them to do, but see their career go where they want it to go. When, years ago you spoke to them and they said, I want to move up and do this. So you could look at upskilling, so people are moving up, or reskilling, so people can, like, the career lattice, so you can go across and do different functions.
I love that, because I think it assumes that, learning and development is a shared responsibility, right? Like, obviously you want to hire people who have that learning agility and, seek to grow and do that. But as a company, you need to offer them the platform and the space to do that as well, right? And so having those L&D programs that you've been building there is helpful.
It starts with the onboarding piece, right? So, because onboarding used to be like orientation, right? So it's like, well, there's the printer, there's the kitchen, that's it. But it's not about orientation anymore, it's about acceleration. How can you get someone on and get them productive? And so working closely with, not just get them productive, that's half the story, getting them to feel valued and a part of the team. Because I saw a study, and it said that 91%, it was by Robert Half, right? So 91% of new hires think about quitting in their first 90 days. I read that, I was like, that's so high, right? And I'm sure many people who are listening to this have been at a job, and in the first 90 days, you're like, this is blowing my mind. Is this the right place?
Has that drinking from the fire hose moment of anxiety and stress. Yeah.
And because you don't know that much about the business, and you kind of just getting thrown work. And so I think you want people to feel valued and productive, and you just want to really understand where this is, like, where is this going? Not because if the first 90 days is anything to do with, like the next few years of my career, I can't sustain this. So you want them to feel like they're getting trained up and they've got all the tools they need to succeed as early as possible.
And that you're aware as an employer or even as a boss, right, that that first 90 days can be stressful, right? And
yeah.
just for them to know that you recognize that this is a ramp up, right?
And I would set that. So I realized, so I've set this expectation with people that I've interviewed for my team and gone, do you know what? This is not perfect. This is the job. Here's the challenges. Here's some of the things that I can really need to do in the first 90 days. Sometimes it will scare them off, but it means that if you've got someone who's going, I'm up for that. I really want to solve these challenges, or then day one, the expectations, they know it's going to be tough, but it's not always going to be tough, and they know that I'm completely transparent, rather than interviewing them and then going, gotcha, right, day one, like, here you go, and then they're like,
that's the experience we've had. I mean, everybody's had that experience before. Like, they sell you a certain job, and then once you get started, you're like, oh, there's 7 different people that have 7 different views of what this job is.
yeah,
I did not understand, or wow, there's a whole gap here that I wasn't even aware of. But I think transparency, that's the word that that you hit there. I think when there's transparency, people know what they're getting into.
yeah,
They aren't so hard on themselves to push and burn out in those first 90 days.
Yeah.
They can take it time and understand that they're running a marathon, not a sprint here.
Yeah.
And that learning the organization and the role is important and part of being human.
Yeah. And I think you got is having that consistent feedback or constant feedback during it, because they know it's gonna be tough, but they know I've got their back. And it's like there's gonna be good times and there's gonna be tough times, but as long as I've got your back, we'll set these are the expectations, and they kind of know where they stand the whole way. Because I think sometimes the real challenge is you get thrown in and you're like, am I doing a good job or not? Am I sinking or am I swimming? I don't know, but I think you've got to have that continuous feedback to know where you stand.
Love that. I've jumped into leadership roles where I had a manager that maybe wasn't as good at that, and it was like they're expecting first 90 days, like, you're up and running, right? You got everything under control. I mean, even the robots need to learn. Even these AI algorithms need time to learn. That's fantastic. Well, great. You had actually the last question I want to ask you is you had this great line in our prep call, right, where you said, if you're doing the same job today as you're doing as you were doing 5 years ago, you're being left behind. Unpack that for me. What do you mean by that?
The access to information, is, majority of people have access to some kind of, either, internet or AI. And so you can get the data, you can get the information, you can do the research. But it's about how you apply that research, and how you tell the story behind it. And what are you actually doing? Because everyone should remain curious in their life, and I'm always looking at different ways in which to improve. It might drive some of my team crazy because they think we're working on a project, and then I'm like, I've got an idea. Like, how about we're doing? I know we're going along this path, but like, what if we were to do this? And sometimes they're like, that's a great idea, let's continue down there. Sometimes that's crazy, and here's why. And I'm like, okay, like, do you know, we've all got, I'd love to, like, us to all have a voice, but it means that like, coming back to the question, 5 years ago, we didn't necessarily have the same access to that information or research. You might have to go to more conferences, or it might be within your network or based on your experience. Well, now with like AI or ChatGPT or whatever, I can get all the information I need, and
every scenario played out for you that you could ask for. Instantly.
Exactly. So I think it so the life of skills is shrinking, but the learning agility is growing. And so it kind of, I think as TA leaders, we want to make sure that we are growing our knowledge, growing our skills, and still learning from connection, learning from one another is super important.
That's great. So it sounds like getting comfortable with not being comfortable, essentially. Getting comfortable that your skill set, just like the role, is going to evolve over the next 5 years, probably from now on to the next 5 years, it's exponential, the change, right? And so just embrace it.
Exactly. So nothing good comes in the comfort zone. So I'm just constantly like just pushing myself and those around me to be like, we're all going on a journey together, and it's not always going to be smooth sailing, right? So there's going to be some things that are quite scary, but if we're doing it together, then we can learn pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I think that turns learning and development into something fun, and being able to foster sort of an environment within your team of that curiosity, I think makes it really interesting. You're not just leading from a place of productivity and what are you doing, but you're leading from a place of growth and exploration. That's a great change, I think, that we've seen over the years.
Yeah, and I think we talked about it. So the curiosity and how the people that I like to hire are genuinely curious. So when we're going on these journeys, they're also interested in like, oh, what does that mean? Can we push things beyond where we thought were possible? Because sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. But the type of people that surround yourself with, if you're like open to change and open to challenge, then it means it's an exciting thing to go and explore.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel that way with our hire community, like bringing team leaders like yourself together, like to get in a room and just be curious together and like talk about the challenges and things like that. So just thank you for coming on, and thank you for being a part of the hire community. You mentioned golf, in our pre-call too. So are we starting like a hire Austin golf league or what?
I'm in. Wait, a league sounds pretty serious, but if anyone, does want to,
maybe just a pickup game. I'm in. 9-hole scratch or something.
I've got 3 kids, so I don't have much time to go and play golf. So if anyone like does want to play golf or connect, then I'm always looking for an excuse and to get out and on the course.
That's it. I've talked to a couple of ladies and gentlemen here in Austin that also dabble.
Okay.
So maybe we can get one going.
Awesome. Thank you.
To everyone listening, thank you for tuning in to Hiring on All Cylinders. If you enjoyed today's episode, share it with a fellow TA leader. Be sure to follow us on LinkedIn or join the Hire community at hirehq.com. Until next time, keep scaling with purpose.